And that tea
Oh, I had to
slurp
get
though.
the tea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all hear that tea slurp? You know it's real.
Let me get mine in.
Yeah.
You have kind of like an artiste side to that slurp though. Yours, the pinky's
put the
high with
finesse on
yours,
it.
my friend.
I gotta flick the pinky up with it just for that.
So what's in this tea mixture of yours?
I got some Earl Grey black tea and just some regular green tea. You know,
Just
I like to
mix.
start it off with that.
Do you like the way that tastes? The mix of the two?
Like is a strong word
Oh
with that.
shit! You just want the spark, without the coffee.
You know, exactly. I try to just do that every morning, like routine. Like mostly, I'll eat something before putting the black tea in there because like every time I wake up, you know, if I don't eat something, I'm just sipping on black tea. It definitely gives me like stomach.
Yep.
Kind of like aching, almost a little bit like
black
shroomy.
tea. You talking about black tea?
Yeah.
Dude, I remember one day, like, this is probably like 4 years ago when we were living over off Hiawatha.
Yeah.
Padong had got up at like, it's probably like 6:40. She was working early in the morning, and she drank like a whole thing of black tea, like a whole cup of black tea. And she was just like having the worst time. And since that day, I was like, I'm not going to fuck with that. Although I don't usually get stomach problems too much from stuff, but I could see black tea.
Yeah.
Kinda. It's probably just that like bitterness or something about it. But it's weird because I can have coffee on an empty stomach usually. I'll feel gnarly later if I don't eat though. Like if you wait on that, if you have coffee and then like 4 hours later.
Yeah.
Oh, hey. What up, Max?
Oh, that's what's up. Somebody joined in. They're actually willing to listen.
Yeah.
All right. That's what's up.
It's different on Facebook than on YouTube.
It is. YouTube is like dead. We usually get the max we've had like what, 5?
Maybe for a moment. Well, mainly because we say we're gonna start at a time and then life happens and we don't start at a time.
Yeah, we'll get better about that. We'll get better about that.
What is time really?
Construct.
Shit. What's up, brother?
Man, life, you know. That's about it. Like
summer.
Yeah, summer. Summer has been pretty interesting this summer. It's probably like definitely one of the best summers that I've been having.
In recent years, I am with you. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Just like growth and like just trying to like actually enjoy the summer too.
Right. Like kind of a balance, you know?
Yeah, for sure. But still like moving and grooving in my own ways.
For sure. What would you say? So last summer we were already over here. We were over north, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't have this spot yet. We were at the house though.
Yeah.
And you were working at you weren't working right away, like
Not
to
right
begin
away.
with. Yeah. No, and then eventually you got Baker Square back or some shit.
Cafe.
Oh, no, Cafe Racer. That's right. Yeah. But last summer, I don't really remember it. Like honestly, I feel like it kind of breezed by.
It felt like a breeze by. It felt like just a nice breeze and like fun and like getting like footing right going into the winter.
Right.
Kind of.
Yeah. I'm gonna turn this up a little bit.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. No, I feel that. Oh, you know
that
we
was
fucked up on?
that was the summer though. Definitely started getting in way into like collaging and stuff like that. Like actually, you know, I just like it's funny how that started. I remember that too. That was hilarious. How he's got
that was the sound of us starting the actual recording too late.
Yeah, that's funny.
No, yeah. I think last summer, because Margot was into that realm too, right? So you guys were kind of connecting, and then I remember the living room just being full of like these setups.
Yeah. I was like majorly just going in on that a lot.
Mm-hmm. You
So
made some
I feel
cool
like
shit
that
too.
was there's definitely a lot of stuff that I'm about to be presenting as well.
Tell me more.
Gonna have to see that.
Oh, you got to wait.
To see that. Yeah. Couple little big projects just didn't work on like the collage tip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still work in progress. I don't know, it's been a nice little journey though. Just like I have tubs full of like books and just art and just graph, you know, Neo Jet.
It's like the update to when you're a kid and you got the tubs full of like toys and like Legos. I had a Hot Wheels tub for sure. But now you got the art tub. tub full of shit you can just cut up and make into something else.
Man.
Did you hear an echo that wasn't there before?
I think that echo was already there.
Yeah.
That's all right though. It's cool.
It's cool.
Oh, we got another person?
Well, they were there for a
Yo. That's what's up. Appreciate that. Appreciate y'all joining in.
Yeah.
What about you? How you been feeling this summer?
Really good. Yeah. Like I said, last summer when I think about it, I don't have much to say about it. Wasn't a bad summer, I don't think, but this summer,
yeah, nah, it was very creative, and like even going into the fall,
yeah,
I felt like it was very creative. A lot of things.
Yeah, I don't think last summer I was in a creative space. This summer I feel that way a lot more. There's a few reasons, I'm sure.
For sure. For sure.
Love does interesting things. But also, yeah, for sure. But also, just, I don't know, getting you guys involved in Bodhi has been awesome. Like, having you guys around, I get to hang out with my best friends while I work on what I like doing too.
Exactly.
And that's been awesome. It's been like a dream since forever, honestly. Like, way back. I never knew it would actually happen in the context of tech stuff, you know, because it was always like the tech stuff when I worked at Chipheads back in the day. It was always something I did, but I wonder if it's because.
Well, not even not to cut you off on that.
Go ahead.
I think too, it's the times, like it's funny because I was reading this article, and I read this article before, and they're just talking about like the rock starness of things, and like tech was one of those things, just like this rock star image that they're trying to go into in a way, and like just making it real more cool in certain ways.
Yeah.
So it's just like I feel like a lot of people,
like, that's changing.
Yeah, that perception is changing.
Yeah, because I
in
definitely.
some ways.
Yeah, I won't say I felt like too not cool being a tech person, but I definitely was like back with the Great Us and that realm. I was like,
well,
this is a way cooler
on.
thing to be doing. But yeah, now I feel like there is a larger level of acceptance of the coolness of getting involved and being the nerd. Just that general term nerd is like changing a little bit, you know.
Or letting your nerd be shown.
Letting the nerd be shown.
You know?
Exposing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been really good so far. It's been a little slow at Bodhi. It's, we haven't been super busy business-wise, but I think it's been good because we've been able to enjoy the summer.
And like just build on foundational wise as well. Like
get a little more organized.
Yeah, all of that.
Getting ready for the blast off. No.
Yeah, nah, for real though. Like that's what it feels like. It's funny with like, I mean, whether people like believe in intuition and like stuff of that, not
right.
It's just like when you feel certain things, like this culmination of things starting to come, like your efforts being put in, like, and your energy being put into this thing, and like I've definitely felt that finishing musical projects or just finishing projects in where it's like, oh, I feel this thing coming, and I feel like life, even just like I might not have hit certain goals like exactly how I wanted to, but it even like reaching.
But the underlying feeling.
Yeah, the underlying feeling and exactly like the confidence build.
You think
like
in the past though, with some of that, like you kind of play yourself with it, like you build up so much about what's gonna happen, and then it doesn't happen, and then it's like, fuck.
All day, you can fuck yourself up on expectation, especially like unrealistic expectation. And when I say that, I don't mean that your dreams are unrealistic. I just mean like as far as, are you even setting yourself up right? Like, what are you doing? If you're just like talking and not actually putting in certain groundwork to do things, like you're not gonna get as much of an impact that you probably could get if you put in more of the groundwork. And sometimes you might not just flat off putting in all the things that you got. You might not get the expectation that you think, but you're probably gonna learn a lot and like have things to be grateful for just going through the process of it. If you look at it that way, you can look at it different too, though.
It also depends on what you're grasping for, because I feel like the expectations that people build are a lot of the time, especially in this rat race of a world we live in, they're constructed around fame and around money and around a lot of things that may well happen on that path, you know. But if that becomes kind of like, if that output is sort of what you're expecting as you're doing the input,
it could change some things.
Yeah, it definitely can adjust how you approach the actual process.
I find it's like using that thing, your gifts, your talents, your skill sets, you know, utilizing it, and sometimes lying to yourself to make it so it's like this is coming from a good intent, or you know, this is coming from a good place,
and
but
not
like
just to
really,
yourself, but sharing that, like
sharing that, dude. You
I'm
can
doing
trick
this to
yourself.
change the world.
Yeah, and like sometimes get to the bottom of why you're doing it, and like be honest with yourself, and you know, like, and it's if you can live with your honesty of how you want to be, you know, that's on you, you know. If you don't want to live with that, like, change it, or look at it different, or accept it, or whatever, you know what I mean? But just like, we definitely get good at lying and telling ourselves this is why we're doing this or that.
We definitely do. Yeah, I definitely know I've spent time in that space mentally. Not interestingly, like, I will say that at this point in life, and I think the whole process of Bodhi for me has not been set with that intention. It was more, at some point I realized, like, damn, I want to solve the money problem for myself, and this is an awesome way to do it. This is working. Let's do this. But it wasn't like, I need to also be fucking rich right now. You know what I mean? And even to this moment, we just said, like, this idea of blast off, or like there might be a growth that happens coming up. It feels that way, but it doesn't feel like we're like reaching hard for it. It's kind of like
it's naturally
receiving, you know, just kind of like being ready for opportunities that show up, taking advantage of those opportunities, but not projecting too far into the future about what those opportunities are going to lead to, and what we want from them, I guess, almost like letting them be what they're going to be. Not trying to squeeze something out of them, especially in a future context.
Rap a little and caress a little bit, but it's like, exactly like you said, I feel like letting it be and letting it come together, but also, like, you know, taking care of it as well, nurturing it, putting energy into things.
Yeah.
I feel like from just like conversation we had and like life things that have happened, especially within the last year and last 6 months, it just, and looking at other people's lives that we deem successful, or deem have found certain qualities in their life that we kind of like are looking for as well, you know what I mean? To like bring into our life. It just seems like there's this aspect that you can't really like, or try not to go into things so much of like, I'm doing this and I'm gonna get this thing, like ultimately like get this bread off there and like do the whole come up thing.
Right.
You know, like there's definitely, I feel like, naturally an aspect of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like going in with that super intentful, like, it's almost like that thing doesn't,
versus being like
open up,
kind of just present, I guess people would say, like just to process, like actually being in that process and taking it for what it's worth in that moment. Yeah, that's big. And like art and stuff like that, it's obviously a big difference between people making art in that context versus in the context of or in the art in the context of process, you know, versus output driven profit, I guess you could say. Process versus profit. Yeah, whatever kind of profit that may be.
That's nice. Process versus profit. Like,
yeah,
for real though, like, even when I think about just like my lifestyle and just like certain things and aspects that we grow with, there is definitely a big part of like, this is gonna fix all my financial problems. This is gonna fix all my problems, basically. Like, just figuring this one thing out, and then got it. I'm like, when I get on, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a phrase that I've used. That's a phrase that I've heard many people use. Like, when I get on,
then you know you'll take care of some shit.
Then I'll do this. When I get on, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And it's like, learning more of that. It's like, nah, first of all, I'm gonna have to put myself on. Second of all, what can I do now?
Yes,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? So I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to do and work what I could do now. It's not gonna be perfect, of
Yeah.
course.
No, I think that's
But-
huge. People kind of find a way to procrastinate because they're like, "Oh, the effect I could have right now is too small, so it's not worth it. I need to get this before I can do anything." That book Small is Beautiful that I told you about that I read. It talks about economics and the importance of small scale economics versus what we're dealing with right now. Well, it just kind of deconstructs modern economics conceptually, but the big take I have from it, and even just the name of it, is just that small is beautiful. Like doing small things, and they all add up into something that's good and beneficial, I guess. And that not everything has to be some giant fucking company or project that reaches the entire world. Like the small things you do, like there's that butterfly effect that happens anyway. So like you affect one person in a positive way, and that person could affect, they might be the one that puts the big stone in the water that makes the big splash. You never know.
Yeah.
And so I think as we like do that thing of putting off like engaging our more positive intentions because we can't until we have a certain resource, we're like, there's a huge opportunity cost to that, I guess, to use that word, which is like an economic term. But I know I thought about it that way for a long time. Even that analogy of like throwing stones in the water, I was like, oh, I want to make a splash. So like these little stones I'm throwing in just aren't doing it, man. I gotta wait until I got the big boy and I can just whoosh, cannonball.
Yeah.
But you probably just do that long enough, and then at some point you're 60, 70 years old, and you haven't really splashed in the water at all.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. I know exactly what you're saying. And it's funny that you say that, because definitely...
Kevin, one snowflake can bend the bamboo leaf.
For real, though. Yo.
That's rad.
It's like, there's one thing that, I forgot where I read this from, but it's basically that analogy on both ends, where it's like all the small things that you do or don't do add up to the equivalent of like your life in the present, you know? And it's like, especially once you get conscious, like once you're conscious of that you have control of your life in certain aspects.
Yeah.
Because some people don't really get conscious to that till later, or maybe they die like that. I don't know.
Right.
You know, it's definitely privilege.
You're saying thoughts. Consciousness of being in control of your life.
Yes, exactly. Like you can write your own script. You know what I mean? Like there's a term from like this book that I read, 7 Habits of like Effective People. Something.
Yeah,
like
we
that.
have it over on that bookshelf.
Exactly, exactly. And they talk about that concept of just like, you know, there's scripts already written.
Yep.
You know, there's scripts already written for you, and if you're not conscious of that, then you're just gonna fall into the script that applies to you, and then you're not writing your own script. So by the time, you know, you get what I'm saying. So
yeah, you're like on this treadmill.
You're already
or not treadmill, but like you know, at the airport they have those like walking things where you stand on it and it just goes.
Yeah, you're right on that. Even if you think you're like running, you're running on that instead of like writing your own script. Where in that visualization there, instead of walking on that treadmill, you're now building your own fucking like conveyor line that's just going. You know, however it's going.
Yep. Well, you notice those all go the exact same way, parallel with the walls too. There's no divergence into
nothing.
Yeah.
And that's something that, like me personally, just you know, it's been a process. It's been years, but just starting and like continuing on that journey of like I'm writing my own script.
Yeah.
You know, I'm taking back my life. I'm taking back my narrative of my life in certain ways.
When would you say you had those sorts of thoughts? Do you think they came all at once, or like obviously they built, but was there a certain time where you feel like I'm on this conveyor belt? Holy shit.
There was a certain time when I felt like I'm about to shift this. And I say that was like around 18, 19, 20.
Okay.
That was a moment of like where it was like, oh, okay, like things need to start changing. I need to start looking at my life a little bit more clear and start changing things for real.
Were there any
And
specific events that triggered that, if you don't mind sharing?
I scope on it a bit, but just like one of my like I don't know, like depression. One of my best friends going to prison, you know, and like just falling out with some people that I really loved, you know what I'm saying? Family members that I was close connected with, and like, you know, first love type of thing deal going on, and like
first love, first fall.
Yeah, super. And just like a lot of like dark stuff in that period of time, and like very depressive state, and like just had to like make a change in certain ways.
A tough time for it to happen to 18, 19, because it's like, I mean, it makes sense, I guess, because we're in such a, I guess you'd say, transformative space during that time, but trying to figure out the school aspect, finishing school, trying to figure out did you go to college like around that time?
I did.
You went to recording college, right?
Yeah, I went to St. Paul Tech for like a year or something for like business, and, you know. Yeah, and then I went to McNally Smith when it was open.
It's closed now?
Yeah, they closed down, bro.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that lets you know how things are going, you know, in the world today. But it closed down, you know, and I went there for like a year and some change, and you know, it was cool just far as like connection and stuff like that, and being able to use like this expensive ass equipment. But it's like I self-taught really a lot of the stuff that I learned in engineering.
So the resource and maybe the people you met were the important parts of that experience.
Yeah.
What about the teachers? Were there any teachers that were really,
there was cool
mentors?
Yeah, there was a couple cool teachers, man. Thomas Day, I think Chris Black, I want to say, or Chris Jack or something like that, like some old cats. And then Toki Wright was there, you know.
Yeah.
He was cool. And
Desdemona? Dessa from
Yeah, she was cool.
Interesting. Was she a teacher there?
Yeah, she was a teacher there for some time. I think it was under the hip hop studies.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, man. So there were some cool teachers, some cool people.
Yeah.
A lot of grimy moments. That just brought back some moments. Living in like this hotel spot with like one of the homeboys, and just like eating horrible food, nachos and cheese, and just
nachos and cheese,
beef, like
living in a hotel. This was while you were going to college.
Yeah, while I was going to college, it was like back and forth, like basically like I think I was like kind of staying like at my mom's, and like back and forth to living in this like motel hotel area where most of the college student lived, like went to McNally and stuff. It was like right downtown St. Paul.
Yeah, because McNally is right off like Cedar, right?
Yeah.
Over by the light rail and stuff there.
But yeah,
was there, I should say.
Yeah, hell yeah. It's funny. That was like just like funny period.
So would you say that the process of going to McNally, this was after the realization of conveyor belt vibes, right? This is that period. There's like, I'm trying to
the transition. So after the period and the transitioning into, and like the very, very beginning of like I need to write my own script, and like thinking about just things, and trying to really face depression, face anxieties, face all these things like head on.
Right.
But yeah.
And then,
to answer your question.
Yeah, to answer the question. Yeah. So so then you started on that process. You went to school. What made you leave McNally?
Honestly, money.
Yeah.
Money.
You still have that. Don't you still have that on your back?
Yeah, it's still on my back, you know, which it's going to get taken care of.
But maybe you got the credit card recently, so your credit score is getting a little better.
Yeah. Nah, things is coming up. You know? Money. And once that was kind of like the thing, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put that money issue on the back burner. I'm not gonna like pay my student loans like right off the back, and just like live and grow and like fine tune my arts and fine tune my skills on things, and also learn new skills throughout the process as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Did your music at that point then, was it like a really hard decision to leave school because of that? Because you had this resource of these like awesome studio spaces to work with, and like, did you just go straight to like closet studio vibes, or did you have friends that were
Nah, I
doing stuff at that
actually
time?
I
Ideas.
actually like started to
Thank you, Christina.
I started to go like do some internship and then like kind of working with a few cats that had like studio spaces and a mix of it, really,
Right,
a
right.
mix of it. So a lot of that going on and just recording stuff, and like I had some projects that a project that I put out beforehand, that kind of got like some some recognition on there, and
Was this Rio Galore all through this time?
yeah, no,
Yeah.
this was
From
Real
the
Galore.
start, Rio Galore? 'Cause I never
Well,
asked you that if you had other names.
dude, I had another name before that, young Tio or something like
Young
that.
Tio?
Young Tio.
Mm.
It was like basically like my street name,
Yeah,
quote
yeah, yeah.
unquote, that I just took and made the rap name or whatever.
Natural.
There might have been another name. I don't remember, but there might have been another name like
Yeah.
Young Cheese. Some just stupid, ridiculous name. It was like supposed to be for my like songwriting name. I tried to separate them, just ridiculousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
So how far off from that conveyor belt do you feel now?
Very. It's
What's
well,
a conveyor belt?
like I mean, it's still there. Like there's habits, there's certain mentalities that are still just they're stuck like this thing. You like cut off this root, or like you try to cut off the root, but the root is still like
Oh,
stuck
for
in
sure.
there. I just cut off the stem or the
Yeah.
top of it and shave it down.
Yeah.
But so it's still there, but like I had to like jump off and like start building over in this area.
Do you think it's taken like conscious effort to prevent the regrowth of those things, like
Every
while
day.
still swimming in this environment?
Every day.
Yeah. Social media doesn't make it easier.
And social media doesn't make it easier, and it's a bit more like a bit more hardcore and like a bit more sharpened because of the experience and the knowledge that I have that I can apply to that now. You know what I'm saying? It's like now I have this experience and knowledge where I can apply it to that thing. You get what I'm saying?
So it's like
Where
a tempting thing where you can be
yeah.
like, I could just hop right back in this.
I could hop on this and apply
I'd be
this
moving
today.
faster than before.
Exactly, and moving in a certain way.
Yeah.
And it definitely, but it's also, I'm more conscious of how much of my gold, per to say, that I'll have to be trading in for that. You know what I mean? So it's like, do I really want to trade in this amount of gold for that thing that I could obtain? And it's like, it's funny because I had a friend that asked me, I'm not going to say the exact question, but he was like, yo, you could tap into that negative quality, you know what I'm saying, into a certain negative quality, a certain manipulating negative quality.
Sure.
And it's like, I thought about that in my life. I was like, dang, yeah, it's always kind of been there and I can do that. But it's like, I don't want to do that. To me, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to be dealing with manipulating people and manipulating people to get a certain gain out of life,
It's not free. You're trading something of yourself to do
Always.
that. All this work
Always.
that you've done to not be that way.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's almost like you still have to work with that other side of things or this side of things to survive in it. Like even we got the house up here and we own the house, but it's a mortgage, and at any given moment, if some big corporation wants to come or the
And
government
buy the
decides
plot
they
of
want to
land.
use, they can. So it's not really like in full control, and we're still sort of still have to come up with that green stuff,
Exactly.
to pay it. So you kind of always have to keep one foot on that conveyor belt to some extent. But how you compartmentalize it, almost like to be able to put it as like this thing, you got to take care of that, but it's not gonna like envelop the rest of my path.
Exactly.
It's like kind of an important process. But like you said, it's like a daily, like, conscious process. You can't just kind of like not think about it and let it work itself out. I feel like not unless you just decide to go live out in the mountainous wilderness
and at some point I do think like you have to constantly be working on that, and just to get, I feel like for me personally, my personal experience, you're setting into the routine. I'm trying to make it a lifestyle, you know, where I'm not thinking about it as much, you know, and like at some point I don't, it's not like completely engulfing my mind like, man, I can't be this way anymore, you know. But it's definitely, it's lesser, you know what I mean, where it's like, man, I'm not trying to engage into that petty side of myself or that negative side, you know. Maybe some things I am, you know, but some things I'm not.
It's funny how that game side, you know, is to some people and to ourselves at some point in our lives, it kind of like is all consuming, but then when you're outside of it, it seems so small. It's like such a small part of what life is in general, or like what it means to be a human or on Earth or whatever. Can you grab my phone? It's right over there. My bad. I feel like this is a good segue into psychedelics. I said I feel like this is a good segue into psychedelics.
I mean, we could get into that.
Because, yeah, I feel... Hold on, someone's calling the Bodie number. They'll figure it out. Well, I was just going to say, like, I feel like in my life, at least, certain experiences with the plants, we'll say, has absolutely aided in that realization of that is a thing that's going, but it's not the whole thing, you know?
That put the nail, like that hammered the nail finally in for me, like,
yeah, for sure.
Full in.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was your first experience that was like that? Because I'm sure you had experiences before with that stuff that didn't do that.
There's some lessons I learned
Yeah.
that without, you know what I'm saying, the plant teacher's guidance, we'll say the plant teacher, you know, the boomies, the shrooms, and some of the acid. But my like first experience, I say, was the DMT trip. Like, yeah, I had this, as far as like really putting it in, when we're talking about psychs.
And this is like weeks before we started to really connect, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Around that time.
So like, well, okay, so like it's funny because like I said, like it really just like for me, psychedelics really put the final hammer into the nail. It's like life was like drilling this thing into, you know, the nails in there where it was like, yo, yo. And then Sykes was like, bow. The plant teacher was like, bow, yo, get with it or fucking get lost, you know? And that's funny. Get with it or get lost. But so the DMT really like, oh shit, dude. Some of these like realizations, some of these feelings and thoughts, like they're not as crazy and they're not as, you know, just out there as I thought. They might be out there, but they're not as out there.
Right.
And this way of living is like,
so you got like a confirmation almost of some things that you were feeling, like you felt confirmed by it. You're like, oh, it's okay for me to think this way because this actually is something that might be real, or it is real because of the feeling of it. Yeah. Versus all just being kind of part of the brain that holds, you know, information. Like it was just kind of like information before, and then it became wisdom. Yeah,
it became like even more concrete. It like solidifying the information and like the knowledge there. Not that it's like completely right, but it just like was like, oh damn. And then it brought more questions and just more things into my life.
Well, that's so helpful too in terms of clarity, to like you feel this disconnect from the way things are and the things you've been told, and you know something's not right about this, like things are weird. I feel like this might be a thing. And then you kind of looked at, when you try and share that with certain people, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
That's crazy. That's
cool story, bro. And then you have that happen where you're like, oh no, like I know I was onto something here with this, and I now feel very strongly that
very healed.
like you can't convince me differently at this point. Like it's not gonna work. Like, and I can't even describe to you why, but it's not gonna work to try and change my mind on this. Which is an interesting thing. And I don't mean that like it's more of changing your mind about a feeling. So it is something that's kind of indisputable. Whereas like just changing an opinion about something that's like, again, an idea up in the head about the way something works. That should always be available to be questioned, I guess. But when it comes to like, you kind of see what I'm getting at though. Like there's some like the underlying feelings that you got about that experience. Yeah,
it's
set in stone, something that you really can't have taken away from you. You might bury it with other things and forget about it for periods of time, but it won't change the undeniable aspect of that experience, I guess you'd say.
I feel like to add to that, I feel like once you unveil the truth to somebody or truth to somebody, or different ways of living, you can't unsee that. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's like I just can't unsee that now. It's like there's gonna be something in me that's telling me, hey, that thing. You know, you can bury it, like you
can
said.
Choose not to pay attention to it.
Yeah, and it gets easier to bury it, of course. Hell yeah.
So what was it about the DMT experience that made that a reality for you? If you can try to bring it to linguistics, was it just the full leaving the normal, like completely off the conveyor belt, like totally away from it all?
The complete leaving of the conveyor belt, but also like like that, and just the feeling of there's so much more there's so much more to be understood and looked at and viewed upon. And I've always kind of been that type of guy, you know, or that type of person, you know what I mean? That type of being where it's like trying to look at broad picture, the big picture things, and like have not too much let my emotions in a way that I think I know some shit's going on really like be like nah and dismiss it all away.
Well, even just to question the standard paradigm, how we look at things with science right now. With, you know, the
like it's a god and it's all telling.
That it's all telling, and if it's observable, then it's true. If it's not observable, it's probably just can't be observed yet. You know, it's like everything is about this like reductionism, I guess, breaking things down into these like
to understand it, and I like
which is a very important like skill, I guess you'd say, but we've just obsessed over it in this society, you know, to the point where I know to share my side of the psychedelic experience, I guess, like mine was more of a breaking my head open, and like I think seeing things through this certain lens, you know, and I had a lot of, I was during the time, this is like the acid trip, I guess would be the one with you, where I met Reo, really met Reo. Up to that point, I feel like I was an open-minded person. I, you know, was always willing to try something new. I had tons of reasons to not, like, especially in the realm of like health and medicine, tons of reason to be distrustful of the information that I've been given, and you know, by even on the internet and this great place where there's all this info, I still, you know, there's a lot of disconnects. And then had this experience that in all different ways kind of made me realize that we don't know shit. Like, we don't know shit, and it's awesome to know what we can know, but we definitely should not assume that we've got this shit figured out. And that's, I think for me, the biggest part of that was just like psychology, like human psychology, what the human brain or how we interact, like what we're capable of, sort of, or what like is possible in terms of what the brain can do and how we relate to each other as humans. Like, you know, the default assumption is that all our communications are, you know, just done through these words that we talk about, and maybe little micro things that we do with our face and stuff, like that's all accepted. But the idea that there's other ways in which communication,
especially in our environment, like the you know, all we really know is growing up in America here.
Exactly. But I think for me it was mainly just like I went into a mode of suddenly questioning everything. Like absolutely everything became on the table. Where before that stuff was locked up tight, thinking it was sweet. You know, like okay, that's that's how that works. Okay, that after that it was like none of that was true. And I had to kind of like over the months after that first experience, it was kind of like piecing my life back together and trying to hold on to the good things that were like positive. It was like, again, my brain spilled out on the table and I'm like, all right, that cool. And I'm sure I picked up still some things that, you know, that some untruths we'll say.
That's what
that I'm still working on.
Stuck, those roots that are stuck in you.
Yeah. And the more time you spend in environments like this, you just have to be conscious of it and continue to do things to separate from it. But
to even
no, go ahead.
To even add on that, like the spilling of the brain, the opening just cracked open.
Yeah,
I feel like the more big trip obviously was the acid trip for me, and it's just like even after that, like it's amazing, but it's also like scary at a time where it's like, dude, there's so much potential. There's so much fucking like there's just so much out there that possibilities that could be done, and then you realize the possibilities in yourself, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, yo, I've been like, we've been just clamored down, you know what I'm saying? Dumbed down, and there's so much that we could do. Like if every person knew that, like the world would be way different, like in a positive intent, hopefully.
Well, that goes back to the conveyor belt thing. It's like if we could take the tunnel vision off, or even that conversation we had with Tim a few weeks ago, like we're inside this tunnel speeding through, like moving fast as fuck towards what, but take that off and you see the whole sky and, you know, these beautiful trees and plants around us. And
but then it's also the duality and the scariness. Like you said, there was definitely a few months after the big trip where it was like just like piecing things back together and like more on like having to face like, all right, which direction do I want to go? Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? Do I just want to be like, fuck it, I'm just about to like go through life like this, you know, and just like I'm about to hop on a train and like go around life, done? Or am I gonna like start understanding, I love this, I love these things, I want to do these things. Oh, these are things that I actually want to start like learning and start developing in this. And then piecing together this type of thinking I don't want to do anymore.
That summer was crazy too, because we had Oasis, which was this art studio, just like multi-use space we had over in St. Paul in the Vandalia Towers. And we were able to just like be kids there for a whole summer, which was super, super important for that exact reason. Like had we been in a space with a bunch of people that hadn't had their heads broken open all the time, like during that summer, that whole summer, if we had been just like in kind of more normal environments, I guess you'd say, it would have been very quick to just like put a lot of those pieces right back in.
Exactly.
But we were able to leave them out splayed and like share ridiculous ideas with each other. Even like Bodhi, we've talked about this, but like that night of the trip when we were talking talking about some crazy shit about wires integrated in
plants,
like figuring out a way to do that. And that like honestly created visuals that ended up inspiring the idea of using the tree for Bodhi and everything. Like, but like those ideas were out there. I remember you drawing out like a human brain as like this energetic thing with, it was crazy, bro.
Yeah.
But I love that you get to engage in that if you're around people that are on the same page and in a space that allows for that, a safe area to just like be a kid again and like have the most ridiculous imaginative ideas that, maybe most of them are bullshit, but like we so quickly kind of kill the childlike element in people.
You could kill the curiosity.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
the
like
curiosity. Yeah.
Einstein said this basically where it's like, you know, having, you know, basically as much as you want to have the technicality and like, you know, the quote unquote proper ways of engaging into like whatever your studies are, like specifically like in the science and like mathematical realm,
sure.
Still having curiosity, you know, being curious, being that, keeping your kid like aspect, because if you like destroy your gold in essence and like trade it in, it just makes you to this zombie, this cold zombie, and it's like that's no fun.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be a zombie. Like I'm good.
Yeah, it isn't fun
fighting that deadness of you.
It really isn't fun to just be doing what, like, there. I don't know. There's a certain level of enjoyment in getting really good at something that other people also know about, right? Of course. But there's also the being able to engage the unknown and like do things that no one has touched before and like have an idea and going for it that most people are going to be like, that ain't going to work, bro. If you don't get to do that and if you don't like feel excited to do that, then something's missing. I feel like at some point that needs to be a part of life for a human. Like, and we get to do it as kids. Kids do it all the time. Like, you literally watch kids and like they'll come up to you and just say some ridiculous off the wall thing about like they're like Ben told me the other day. He was at the park with Oliver, his son, and there was another girl there. And the little girl came up and she was like, "Let's play Finding Nemo." And they like acted out the movie Finding Nemo in the park. And like Ben was Nemo and Oliver was, or no, maybe Oliver was Nemo and she was Dory. And like they went around and like she was like showing Nemo all these different things and like making a new version of the movie just with the characters in it, you know? And I don't know. Or it reminds me even sometimes like we get in like our group of friends, we get into our ridiculous little like fake like Dragon Ball Z sparring shit or like you know, and that's fun. And you know, but if you were to just like do that at like you go into like the Best Buy headquarters and walk around and like all these people with their like buttoned up suits and you started doing that, like what would be the reaction to that, you know, among people? Like, oh, you guys are being childish. Like there's like that kind of professionalism, which I guess in some ways is sort of melting. I guess like I don't know how I feel about it.
They're trying to bring the swag and the fun back in like the office.
You think it's all just manufactured? Like it's all just like trying to make it fun so it's more enjoyable to be there, but not actually like with an intention of
I think it's way more of that. For sure that. I think the overall thing is that. I don't think that every single person is like that, but I think the overall thing of let's start shaping these.
It's a sign of where the culture's at when the businesses start to react that way and they start to change to try and match what people want. So it's still a good sign because it means that maybe more people are seeking to be able to be themselves wherever they are.
I think, but they're trying to the golden egg thing where it's like trying to maybe like now we don't squeeze the golden egg by the neck anymore. We just fucking make this. Yeah,
it's like a token kind of a little bit maybe. Like you give them enough to make them content, I guess. But how do you think like so one of the things I think about with psychedelics, how there are plenty of people that don't want to do them because they feel unsure about it, right? What I was going to ask is like what are some ways outside of that realm that are also accessible to people that live in the cities that grew up this way? To maybe find that same level of solidity. And I know one in my head that comes up is travel. Like solidity about the fact that the conveyor belt's not the only thing. Yeah. Like a way of confirming the
honestly, man, like reading and like reading like different types of stuff. Like I remember like, you know, definitely in the position that I was growing up in, like I would like, especially dealing with like some of my close people, they knew how I get down. There was different sides of me, you know. There was like this like just stern and like kind of like a-holy and kind of like just tough wannabe or whatever kind of side. Like protective side in the ways, but then like also like this very curious and like nerdy and like playful and like childlike, kid-like, very childlike side, and like just reading my like fantasy books, playing certain games that expanded my thoughts and like curiosity, and I would say that's a big thing. But also, I was kind of thinking about this last night, and it was actually kind of like having dialogue with ourselves, like in different type of ways. Like, what are we asking ourselves? Like, is this something that I actually like? Is this something that I actually want to do? Why am I actually doing this thing? Why do I feel these ways about this thing? You know, whatever it is you're doing, especially in the inner city, like, you know,
kind of questioning things.
Yeah, questioning things, man.
Hmm.
And not, it makes it hard when either your parents, you know what I'm saying, especially your parents, people that you look up to, or, you know, the people around you, your environment, when it's constantly telling you, nah, don't think about that. Don't think about that. Just think about this. And basically, money and survival.
Right.
Like, money, survival, that's it.
Money, survival. Yeah, I think this isn't necessarily accessible, but travel would be another thing. Leaving your normal environment.
Yeah.
Spending time in nature if you can, even if it's not far away.
That's a big
just
thing.
Spending time around the world that's way older than this world.
Yep.
That has a lot of knowledge. A lot.
Gang of it.
Right. Yeah, the reading one's interesting because it kind of reminds me a little bit of like that knowledge was in your head, but it wasn't in your body yet. Like, which is good that you've got it and it's swimming around, but I think it can still be hard to like
solidify it in the body. Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Like actually, like it's almost like, oh, these are all cool and fun things, and maybe like it can become a form of escaping from the conveyor belt a little bit.
There's definitely a fine line.
Yeah, but I mean, travel can be that way. Shit, psychedelics can be that way. People definitely find all ways to escape.
That's kind of what I was saying too, like with the whole, like, you know, just like you can just be like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Just keep doing that.
Escaping is like a lateral but potentially detracting motion. Like, so if the conveyor belt's moving forward, and diverging to a different path is what we're talking about, or like, you know, then escaping is kind of like stopping movement at all, and maybe even moving backwards, you know, which is sometimes you have to stop. Sometimes you just have to stop and
check what out. I'm checking.
Yep. But I think about that because there is a kind of a fine line, I guess, between escape and like actually a change up, like doing something. You know, it's like
observing,
the
being calm
matters,
and present.
Yeah, but like the intention matters for why you might travel even. But I do think that sometimes people do something for one reason and then it ends up bopping them on the head and another thing comes up out of it. Like you can plan on escaping somewhere. And I mean, honestly, even with psychedelics, like I would say the first, I mean, shit, from smoking weed and all that, like I definitely wasn't doing that because I was like, I'm trying to become enlightened, guys. Like this is gonna be awesome. It was like, no, just like getting high with my friends and eating a bunch of food and playing video games and blah blah blah. And then even with the mushrooms, when that came up, that was the like mode that my mind was in with it. But then that's not what happened at all. My first mushroom experience was not enjoyable for the first half by any stretch of the imagination. It was gnarly. But you know, I don't really think bad trips are they're a thing, but they're not like something to necessarily worry a ton about, I guess. They're just gonna happen. Sometimes you're gonna have an experience that's very difficult. I was actually talking to Lauren about this yesterday, that I sometimes, because I had so many experiences like that with shrooms, where it was like challenging as fuck, like to deal with, because of so much built up anxiety and it trying to like, I mean, trying to let go, you know, and when you resist letting go with that, it doesn't feel good. It's a disconnect because it wants to just like
sit your ass down. I'm about to show you this.
Interestingly, I'll finish this thought first, but I was saying that I sometimes have slipped into a mode of like the assumption that it's always that way. Like, and so I sometimes have the mentality that this trip I'm about to have is going to be painful and I'm ready for it and I'll deal with that. It's like a fear conquering process, but I think it's also, when life's tough, sometimes easy to slip into that, like everything is suffering, so even healing is suffering. You know, which it, you know, no pain, no gain, whatever.
Yeah.
But and I do think that you have to some degree deal with that to get real relief. But I also think that it's important to, what I'm thinking about lately especially has been like, maybe I'm going to try to go into some trips with a different thought about it, that maybe this trip can be healing and feel good.
Well,
You know what I mean, kind of?
no, I know what you mean. I do think at some point,
Uncomfortability.
yeah, life is just suffering. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? There's a suffering aspect. That's like a cost at living in the physical realm.
Sure.
It's like there's just certain things that's gonna come with it. Like, I mean, right when we're born, that's that's not a, it's a beautiful thing, but it's also gruesome
Mm-hmm.
looking and all that.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be some suffering, but like you said, the thought of going into it though, like looking at it different, like I'm about to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm
Right.
gonna still have fun. It's like,
Right.
and almost anything that you do, like there might be some kind of uncomfortability depending on how you look at it. It's like I'm about to go create whatever it is. I might be uncomfortable about even like start thinking, oh, this might be a dumb idea that I'm creating this or whatever. But maybe if you don't think like that, it's not, and you can have some dope come about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what I was gonna say though, was I've been reading this book called Sacred Plant Medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of focused on Native American healing with the plants. I mean, it's broader than that. It's a way of looking at plants in general as I mean, basically broken down in a simple way, the way that it's perceived, this author perceives it, and from what he's researched and gathered, like it's perceived this way in a lot of cultures, is that each species is like a spirit and has its own archetypal aspects,
Yeah.
and that the healing they provide is based on what that spirit offers, and that each spirit has a song that's associated with it. And this is big, like in Peru, when people talk about I forget what they call them, Icaros, I think they're called. There's these songs basically that, like the forest spirits, basically, or the spirits of the jungle. But basically, each plant has a song, and one of the things that talked about in the book is that a lot of people, like Westerners, like there's quite a few people in Peru or in these indigenous cultures that still get down on this stuff, that feel weird or feel strange about about Westerners working with these plants, because they don't have the attention.
They don't have the respect, the intention.
Well, yeah, but the attention.
Oh, attention.
The attention to listen to the song, and when the song is playing and you're not actually giving it full attention, which reminds me of what I was talking about like the letting go and like my difficulty with the shrooms. It's like if you're not just like falling into the song and letting it play, there's going to be this uncomfortable feeling because it's a disconnect. It's like disharmonious. And that
Disc
space wants harmony. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The disc skip and the vinyl scratching. Like, and I just thought that was a really interesting way of looking at it, though, like as songs. And
yeah,
it reminds me of times like, you're tripping and something comes up and you're like, fuck, I got to go do some like normal like life conveyor belt shit right now, but I am not in the space for this. And it's just like, it doesn't feel good at all. Having to, even looking at a phone sometimes, or that's a very common thing.
Well, even
time is hard to deal with.
For real, coming back from trips, I always like kind of just my phone is off, like somewhere else. Like I mostly check it the next day, just to like let myself get time.
Through. It kind of reminds me of that, like that the back to the Oasis thing. Like we had that Oasis space, and we were able to like let our brains stay open and spilled on the table for those few months, and picking them up slowly instead of having to just jump back into the sea, right?
And
like
I kind of wanted to, no, for sure. And even to add on to the song analogy there, I've definitely heard that too before. And even my experience though with the plants and the flowers and all that, I definitely think there's something to it. I think there's when we open ourselves up, you know what I'm saying, and become more sensitive to the things around us, we're gonna see that and hear that. And even on a level of like, I mean, what is a song? You know what I'm saying? A song, even a song in the way that we can understand
of vibrations.
An arrangement of vibrations, quote unquote, an arrangement of information.
True.
an arrangement of things that
Of
energies. Yeah, exactly. And it's an arrangement of this information that
Right.
is sent to you, and like you're receiving it in however way you want, whether it's making your body move, or maybe it's making you think something, or maybe it's making you cry, or you know what I'm saying, get mad, or whatever it is.
And if you think about the body, not just the brain, you think about the fact that the rest of the body can receive too. The organs receive information. And
I mean, we got water in us. We know that vibration
Right.
affects water, the moon, all this stuff. Gravity affects all that stuff. So it's like that stuff's in us. And I don't know, if I feel like we put pieces together, we're gonna like make it so the mass of people understand it's not that crazy of an idea that these plants, or even the water, the air, whatever it is, you know, these energies and these real living examples of life actually communicate in a way deeper and complex level than we can even comprehend and understand.
Right.
I don't know. Just
Goes back to that old knowledge.
yeah,
this
that
deep
real
old
knowledge.
stuff. And
That OG knowledge, for real.
The real OGs.
The real OG, straight up.
Yeah, and we'll like, obviously we're going through the process of like picking apart all these things. We're finding the alkaloids inside the plants, and we're starting to even. I was just telling you earlier, like I was listening to this podcast that Rogan had. I forget the guy's name. He's got a show on Vice though, and I really appreciated like a lot of his perspectives. The guest he had on. He believes all type of conscious changing drugs, making them illegal doesn't make sense. Like it's not the way to handle it. There's probably a lot of things we could benefit from as a society if we opened up certain things to research. And I agreed with so many things, but then at one point in the conversation, it came up with like, I think Joe asked him something about whether he liked the term plant medicine. And it sounded like he was really averse to it. And I was like, here's this guy who like travels all over the world and like takes all these different things. But I felt like, and after that, I kind of like heard the rest of the conversation that had come up to there again in my head. And I was like, oh, I guess he was looking at it from this lens of like picking these chemicals apart and talking about these particular atoms and molecules and blah, 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 blah. And like, again, he has a wealth of knowledge. I'm not disputing that by any means. But I kind of feel like it's just completely... It's going back to that thing of like the assumption that the human is the smart thing, and these are all just things that we can use and take from. The human is the smart thing. Everything else is dumb. They're just things to be taken apart from, and we can use them for our healing and our process. And it's like, I feel really disconnected from that concept. Like really disconnected from that concept, especially now.
Well, even to add on that, did you finish?
No,
that? No, I totally like. I hear what you're saying. Even now, it reminds me of just like, taking this aspect like
appropriate, basically things. Exploitation, appropriation. It's a
even
similar,
more, super exploitation.
Yeah,
in a nasty way to me, where like kind of what I was saying is like utilizing that thing that you got, you know, the knowledge or the skills, and then you're just like. Just seeing just this lens, and you convince yourself it's just completely this without trying to change the information,
right?
Or just trying to change your viewpoints in ways. And
well, I was gonna say I would also like, I appreciate someone maybe saying, and even myself, like I'm not by any means, I am a complete novice when it comes to this idea of plant medicine.
Sure,
I'm not for a second claiming I know a lot.
So
I would respect, I think, the opinion coming from someone saying, like, I choose not to use that word because, like, I don't know enough about it to speak on it, maybe. Which, you know, maybe that's true. Maybe right now even that's something I should be thinking about. But it's just weird for me to, like, hear them dissecting the plants but not giving them respect. Like,
see,
like,
that's the total thing that, like, to even add on that, I was kind of, like, going with this idea one day and just talking how, like being transparent and observation and studies, because that's what science is. Right. You're observing and you're studying stuff.
Right.
And to come to certain theories and conclusions that prove, you know, right until proven wrong. But I think that just being transparent and respecting the things that we're studying, you know, and the people that we study.
Right.
Yeah.
And knowing that people observe things differently. Because going back to the idea of information coming in different ways, like, so if someone knows how to listen to the songs of a plant, and you see that same, and the thing that gets me is like there's these cultures that exist in totally separate geographical regions that have come to understand healing properties of the same plants without communication between the two cultures. And they know that sage has this effect on this, or they know that, you know what I mean? Like, if that's happening, then they don't have a lab. They didn't figure this out because they broke down the molecules and they understood this and that.
Well, what is a lab?
Well, no, I know what you're saying. They don't have the Western science lab. That's, you know what I mean? So, and you ask them how they did it, and they said, well, our medicine man went out into the forest and the plants talked to him, or he heard their song, and so, and that's a consistent thing happened across the world. So I don't know, and we completely deny that because it's hard for us to look at it from that lens in our culture, in our paradigm. It's actually a difficult thing to wrap our heads around, I guess you'd say.
Oh, hell yeah. I think it is. I think and it's going to be like that, and I think the challenge right there is to keep the open mind whenever come across that.
Exactly.
And it's like, I was actually doing this like analysis type of breakdown theory thought or whatever, where it was just like, for this point, I'm going to say like the shaman practice and like the modern scientific practice. And it's like, they're both like studies of things, and they're both like going into these different.
Those people are still
realms.
Experts in those realms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can only imagine what it's going to be like when the first group of people decide to say, fuck their biases, fuck all that shit, and actually come together and, compare notes and bring things together. The things that we're going to figure out and find are going to be so crazy because it's like they're so separate, and it's like they're different. They're different observers and techniques to coming to conclusions of things, and like that's I think we just need more connectivity with people, ways of living.
I think it's really hard. So the paradigms are kind of opposed, but they're not, in the sense we talked about this during the one with Tim too, where I feel like the Western ego aspect is like, we've got this figured out. That shit's crazy. We don't need your help. We're doing just fine over here. And the other side's like, cool story, and just like doing its thing. And like you said, if that ego can get knocked down a bit, and it can be the mind can open to receive some of that, and maybe actually give it a sec, and not just try and look at it through the same way. That the problem is that people are going to try to dissect it the way they dissect everything else, and it won't work because you're going to do it that way. It won't work. It's not going to work the same way. You're not going to just like be able to find the chemical reason that medicine man can do that necessarily.
Or maybe you can,
but I'm just saying that if that's the way you come about it, like it's not like really
that's the only way.
It's not really open minded, I guess is what I'm saying. It's
no, for real. And like, it reminds me of kind of like, even with the modernness, I think that it's kind of like this aspect of like, because this is the funny thing. All the stuff we know today, we got from back there. You know what I'm saying? All the stuff is just a more developed idea or a more developed process. So it's like, you're sitting there, you got this knowledge, and then you're like, fuck the OG. I know what I'm doing right here, because you might have updated something and thought, oh, I can do it better and figure out this thing. And now you're doing this thing. You're like, now you're so on this pedestal that you're just like, fuck that shit. And
then you go turn around and you exploit the OGs.
Yeah, then you
exploit back to the plants
or
the cultures that have been exploited. Yeah,
all of it.
Yeah.
And now we're at this process, I feel like, of just continuing like, oh, well, I'm just going to keep butting my head on this thing, and if it can't be figured out this way, like, there's no other way. I'm not going to even acknowledge that I got this from that, and, just all type of things.
So how do you think Westerners will, like, the Western culture will deal with that when they hit those roadblocks? Do you think it'll just, barricade through, like, steamroll through it, or just go around and just, like, let that problem keep growing into a cancer? I guess that's kind of what seems like is happening now. It's like,
well, I think right now we've built.
Can't figure something out. We just.
Yeah, and we've built this whole system and this ideologies. Like, even the fact of anthropology and science and the study of the earth and the study of chemicals. Like, the fact that we only view it validated if it's coming from quote unquote an old white man. You know what I mean? Basically, any information, if it's not coming from that source, it's unvalidated. It's not real. It's not valid. You know?
Right.
And it's like the fact of that is a problem there already.
Yep.
And like that's what we associate Western ideology and culture. It sums up to that view right there, old white man.
And even if that might be shifting, but now I think we're still, there's like an authoritative aspect that this goes great as a segue into the IOX things, but we've definitely learned that there are certain sources to get your information from, and like basically the other ones, like, don't listen to your friend that might know something. Don't listen to the random guy in the corner. I've met homeless people that have told me some shit, man. Like, and we should listen to some people. You know, we should listen to a lot of people. Yeah, definitely are some people that you can't receive from, and that might have just crazy ideas that are ridiculous, and you need to, you know, be aware of that and protect your filter through what you call bad information, I guess you'd say. Have your prejudices. Yeah. But you know, and of course right now we're all in this like fake news, like, oh, there's so much fakeness, and it's like there's been fake information built into the authoritative knowledge. Our system off fake information. Yeah, like, that's real live fake news, fake his story. But so that actually is a good segue, because I was going to say one of the things we wanted to talk about briefly, because Saba's coming probably in like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Oh, yeah, we talked that long. Was just like why we're doing this, like this podcast. So it's called IOX, which for people who don't know what that stands for, it's Are You a Kindred Spirit? And there's a lot to that to unpack. That might even be a whole episode just to talk about that. But that came up, this big trip we were talking about earlier, that's kind of the time when that concept came to the surface. Big psychedelic trip that we and a group of friends had. Yeah, exactly. On Memorial Day, 2014, I think. Something like that. Yeah, it was a ways ago, 4 years ago. That's crazy. But anyway, the Are You a Kindred Spirit? So basically, to me, the concept, at least one big part of it, is like the idea of finding the people around you that you actually resonate with, and that you can be open with and talk to, and that are kindred spirits of yours, and not necessarily always reaching out into the masses, not always assuming that everything you do has to have that big splash that reaches people that don't like, that are just wanting to like it, or, you know, like really seeking actual connection from your experiences with people. And that's not to say that we should avoid, you know, the possibility of virility of something that you share, something that you do becoming really popular if it resonates with a huge portion of the culture. Yeah. But we definitely obsess over trying to reach out way before we were like reaching in. Like, it just reminds me, like, basically being grassroots about how you go about life. Like knowing that supporting the tree around you is the best way to start. Like, if you don't have a solid foundation around you, solid people around you that you can connect with, that you can relate to, and you're trying like to grow these crazy branches out to places that you don't know about, I don't know, that's never really worked when I've tried it, at least. But what has worked is working through organic connections that come up, you know, being able to be open with people. I typically am just open with people because that's how I am, but in times in the past that's been a problem for me because I haven't been open with the people that are my kindred spirits, I guess you'd say. I've been maybe trying to be open with people for other reasons, because maybe they had something that I thought was like, you know, a good resource or whatever it was, not because I was trying to like actually be on this resonating tip. Yeah. So anyway, that's, like I said, I feel like we could talk about a lot of that stuff in a bigger way at some point, but the podcast, going back to the idea of authoritative knowledge, one of the things that I notice with podcasts is that there is this element that most of the people brought onto the big podcasts are people that have some authoritative position as like they're a famous person, they're a celebrity, they're blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But our opinion is that everybody, if given a space to talk, especially in long form, you're going to find out something really interesting, whether it's about them and their life or something that relates to your life. Or, I mean, maybe they have a different perspective and a way to describe something that like, boom, hits you in the side of the head and makes you think differently about something. Exactly. And I think that Reo and I with this are That's at least on my end, I think, what we've been trying to cultivate.
Yeah.
And like basically giving space to people that aren't necessarily titled with some fancy thing.
Yeah.
Not that we'd be opposed to having guests on that have done some shit and are well known, but just that's not like the focus of this. It's not just to like have celebrity type people that are like, you know,
just like, and that's
big popping. And
exactly. People, you know, I mean, yeah, we get weird about that. But like, I think that to add on to what you're saying, the focus really is about that. Just trying to make these connections with people that are, you know, within our kindred circle,
Right.
and make a deeper connection, and people that are even close and like have maybe the potential to even be that, you know,
Yeah.
and be the same for them as a kindred.
Right, exactly.
that.
That was another thing, yeah, was the idea that, you know, you might know someone that's like part of an acquaintance maybe or a friend of a friend, and you've seen them at different things, and like and you get along, but you don't end up having a chance to hear their inner world or hear what they do in their life in a deep way.
World,
2
like
hours
that.
of that. Yeah. I mean, you get 2 hours of someone and you might be like, "Oh, damn. I didn't know they did this, this, and this." And the next time you see them, you've got a lot of things to talk about.
Exactly.
You know, where so much of the time you bump into somebody like that and you're like, "Oh, how you doing? Oh, good. Yeah. You know,
Surface
fucking weather,
level.
blah, 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 blah."
Yeah, all surface level.
So it's nice to have like more reasons than like the surface level, like mainstream, this is what's going on in the world and that's what we're talking about. To be able to talk about personal things with someone, things they've actually gone through and experienced that resonate with you, that's like to me, that's a win, like socially.
And getting thoughts on like just like all types of things, you know, different things that's
exactly,
going
just
on,
a different perspective.
things they want to talk about. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, basically that's it. Cultivating that community within there and letting people kind of feel and like you, or at least bringing a space to allow people to hopefully feel like their voice is being heard at some type of aspect, you know.
Yep. Exactly.
I think that's important.
Definitely. Well, I'm excited to keep doing it. I hope people are down to listen to some. It's been
real.
It's been real. And we wrap this up now?
Yeah, man.
Gotta get the space ready. Sabs is bringing the kiddos over.
Exactly.
Not that they're kids, they're in high school.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, whoever did. We love you guys.
Holla.
And
peace and love. You know.
Later, y'alls.
Nice.